Okay, so this is a key to section 2.8 part 2. In number 1, you want to write the standard form of the equation of a circle, and you're given the center and the radius. Now remember, the standard form of the equation of a circle looks like this. It's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And then remember, your center is hk, and the radius is equal to r. Now remember, when finding the center, just make sure in your mind that you can visualize x minus and y minus. So it must be x minus and then y minus. Okay, so you can see what I mean when we do some of these. Okay, so here, what you want to do is write the equation. You're given the center and the radius, and you just want to rewrite it in this form. So remember, it does help if you indicate that the x-coordinate of the center is h, and the y-coordinate of the center is k. All right, and so for this one, you would say x minus, remember it's x minus, h is a negative 2 squared, plus, and then y minus k, which is 3 squared, equals r, which is 5 squared. Okay? And now go ahead and rewrite this. I need for you to rewrite it like this. It's important that you say this. X subtract a negative 2 means the same thing as x plus 2 squared. Plus, and then that's going to be y minus 3 squared. That's a 3. And then 5 squared. Don't leave it as 5 squared. You got to say 25. So a couple of things. Don't leave this as x subtract a negative 2. You need to rewrite it as x plus 2. And don't leave this as 5 squared. You need to rewrite it as 25. Okay, let's look at the next one. So again, it's x minus h, y minus k. So it'll be x subtract, and again, it helps if you label these. So your x-coordinate of your center is h, and the y-coordinate of your center is k. So you're going to have x subtract a negative 1 squared plus, and then y subtract a negative 5 squared equal, and then that's a square root of 7 squared. So it looks like this, squared. All right, so that's 7 squared, right? Squared 7 squared. And so you need to rewrite the x subtract negative 1 as x plus 1 squared plus, and then y subtract a negative 5. You need to know that's the same thing as saying y plus 5 squared, and that's how you are to write it, equal. All right, now you see where it says square root of 7 squared? Remember, square root of 7 squared means square root of 7 times square root of 7, which is square root of 49, which is just 7. So just put there, just 7. Okay, now the next one. So here you're given the equation of the circle. You want to find the center. So you got to be careful. Many students, when they're not thinking, they'll say the center is negative 3, comma 2. That's incorrect. That is not the center. Remember, it's got to be written in this form, x minus h, y minus k. So what I would do is I would say x subtract 3, like this, squared, just rewrite it. Now here, I would say this. I would say y, remember, it's got to be the form y minus. So y plus 2, based on what we just talked about here. So x minus negative 2 is x plus 2. So y plus 2 is the same thing as saying y subtract a negative 2 squared. And then 16 is 4 squared. All right, so now you can see that your h is 3, and that your k is negative 2. That's a negative 2. That your k is negative 2, and that your r is 4. Okay, so you got to be careful when doing these. It's very easy to get to misinterpret what this is saying. So it's x subtract 3, and that 3 is the x coordinate of your center, and then y plus 2, remember, is y subtract a negative 2, and the negative 2 is the y coordinate of your center. So the center is 3, comma, negative 2. And the radius, remember, all you got to do is to find the radius is just take the square root of that number. So the square root of 16 is 4. Or you can do what we just did. 16, rewrite it as r squared, as some number squared. Well, that's 4 squared, so the radius is 4. All right. Now let's go ahead and graph this. So I'm going to graph the center first. So the center is 3, negative 2, so that's here. So that's the center right here. And then we're going to use the radius to draw the circle. So remember, you're going to go 4 units to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's a point on the circle. 4 units up, 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's another point on the circle. And then 4 units to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's another point. And then 4 units down from the center, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you connect those 4 dots, do the best you can with it. Do the best you can. And so there's the circle. All right, now, notice that's the center. I went 4 units right, 4 units left, 4 units up, 4 units down. Now, to determine the domain and range, here's the best thing to do. So remember, the domain is a set of x coordinates. So it's the set of x coordinates of every point that's on the circle. The range is a set of y coordinates of every point on the circle. All right, so notice there's an infinite number of points on the circle. So the best thing to find the domain, remember the domain is a set of x coordinates. So you're going to go from left to right along the x-axis. I'm going from left to right along the x-axis. All right, so when I go from left to right along the x-axis, I start touching the graph here, at this point here. So I got to determine where that x-coordinate is. So notice that x-coordinate is -1. So I'm going to go bracket -1, and bracket because this point is a point on the circle. And then going all the way, so notice I get all these x coordinates on that circle. So for instance, see where x is 2? I get this this point of the circle, x coordinate is 2. I get this point of the circle, x coordinate is 2. Keep going. This is 2 points, well actually, yeah, 2 point something, 2 point whatever it is, 2 point. And then here, this x coordinate is 3, this x coordinate is 3, and so on. So I'm going from -1 all the way to, and then this, and it stops here, it doesn't go any further. This is where the circle stops. So this x coordinate though, remember the domain, this x coordinate is 7. So it's from -1 to 7 with a bracket. Okay, -1 to 7. It helps if you kind of visualize this like I'm doing. All right, now the range is a set of y coordinates, and you go from bottom up because you go from smallest to largest, just like you did the domain. Domain, you go from smallest to largest, from small to large. Here you go from small to large. All right, so just like we did, you go along the y-axis. So notice I'm going along the y-axis. See this? And I start touching the graph, the circle, at this point here. Well, what y-coordinate is that? Well, that's the y-coordinate -6. So I'm going to say bracket -6, comma, and I keep going. And so notice all these y-coordinates on the graph. All these y-coordinates on the graph. For instance, see right here, when I had the y-coordinate -3, y -3, I have this point here that has this y-coordinate -3, and this point here that has this y-coordinate -3. Keep on going, and so on. And the largest y-coordinate on my graph is going to be 2. So that's where I stop. And so there's your domain. I mean your range. All right. Okay, over here in letter B, so again, remember the standard form is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equal r squared. And so where you had it x plus 4, it's a good idea to write this as x subtract a -4 squared. And see this y squared? So in one of the videos you saw that that's the same thing as saying y subtract 0 squared. And that's equal to 5 squared. 25 is 5 squared. So this is your h right here. So remember, you got to write as x minus. It does help if you think about it like that. So there's your h. So the x coordinate of my center is -4, and this is your k right here. And so the y coordinate of my center is 0. So I get the center being -4, comma 0, and the radius is 5. All right. Okay. So I'm going to. So to graph this, I'm going to do the center first. So the center's -4, 0. So that's here, right here. There's the center. And from that center, I'm going to use the radius. I'm going to go 5 units in all directions. And so to help me to graph this, I'm just going to go to the right, left, up, and down. So I'm going to go 5 units to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 5 units up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the center. So went 5 units in all directions from the center. Connect it. Do the best you can. connecting this circle, and so there's the circle. All right, so there's the center, and then the radius, if you go all the way around, the radius is 5 units long. All right, let's talk about domain and range. So remember, domain is a set of x-coordinates, so you can go along the x-axis from left to right. And notice I start touching the graph when I get to this point here. So the question is, what's this x-coordinate? Well, that x-coordinate is a -9. So I'm going to say bracket -9. It must be bracket, not parentheses, because remember, domain and range, you're going to use brackets or parentheses. Brackets if that point is on the graph, and parentheses if it's not. Well, these are all closed circles. There's no open circles anywhere around here. So these are all points on the graph. So -9 is in my domain. So I keep on going, In fact, it's from -9 all the way to this x-coordinate, which is 1. I don't get any x-coordinates. No other x-coordinates are on in this domain. For the range, you go from bottom up. So the range, you're going from, again, notice I'm going from along the y-axis, see along the y-axis, moving up. So I start touching the graph at this point, and so you got to look at this y-coordinate. Well, my y-coordinate, remember your range is a set of y-coordinates. So my y-coordinate is -5 with the bracket all the way to 5 with the bracket as well. All right, so there's your range. All right, so that's going to take care of this worksheet. So this is section 2.8, part 2.